My sister delivered a baby, so I went to hospital. Yet while leisurely strolling along the corridor, I caught my spouse's tone. She is utterly clueless. At least, she's an extremely lucrative asset. Then my mother remarked, "You both merit joy. She's merely a pitiful failure." My sister giggled. "Cheers. I'll definitely ensure we're joyful." I remained silent and turned back. Yet the ensuing events truly stunned everyone. Melissa Johnson sat at her desk, fixated on the fertility clinic bill sprawled across her planner. Not even the dazzling Chicago high-rise skyline could lift her spirits today. "Here we go again," she murmured, pressing her palm against her forehead and releasing a heavy sigh. As a fashion buyer, perfection was always expected of her. Her gaze naturally shifted to the wedding photo on her desk, a captured moment of radiant smiles shared with her husband Brian. Now, after 5 years of marriage, their mounting fertility issues had begun to erect an unseen barrier between them. Brian, employed at a local real estate firm and always immaculately dressed with a winning smile, seemed to mask his weariness of late. The escalating costs of fertility treatments were taking their toll. Over dinner that evening, Melissa reminded Brian that even more expenses weren't covered by insurance now. Brian set his chopsticks down and reached for his glass of red wine. "It's fine, we'll manage," he reassured, tilting his glass. "Work is going well." Yet as Melissa searched his eyes, she sensed he was concealing something. "Really? The joint account's balance is dwindling," she pressed. "Just business expenses," he quickly replied. "I'm making upfront investments to secure big deals. Don't worry about it." Before she could continue, her phone rang. The caller ID flashed her sister Vanessa's name. "Hey, can you talk now?" came Vanessa's voice, trembling with excitement. Interrupting her conversation with Brian, Melissa moved into the kitchen. "You won't believe this, but I'm pregnant," Vanessa announced. Speechless, Melissa leaned against the counter, struggling to steady her breath. "Oh, congratulations," she managed. "Who's the father?" Vanessa's tone dropped slightly. "I can't reveal that right now, for personal reasons." Vanessa had always been Melissa's opposite, lacking a stable job, relying on their parents' financial help, and living freely, while Melissa strove to meet their parents' expectations out of duty. Vanessa had long escaped that pressure by choosing a completely different path. "Have you told Mom and Dad?" Melissa asked calmly. "Yes, I just called them. They were surprisingly pleased, Mom especially." A torrent of conflicting thoughts rushed through Melissa's mind. Here she was, enduring costly fertility treatments, while her sister casually announced a pregnancy. Even more unsettling was the peculiar way her parents, Walter and Elaine, seemed to embrace Vanessa's news without probing the mystery of the baby's paternity. "We're hosting a small celebration at Mom and Dad's on Saturday. You and Brian should come," Vanessa chirped. "Yes, of course," Melissa replied, forcing a smile for appearances. After the call ended, she slumped onto the cold kitchen floor. For years, she had tracked her ovulation, administered hormone injections, and maintained a regimented intimacy with Brian, while Vanessa conceived effortlessly, without even disclosing the father's identity, and now she was being congratulated. Saturday's gathering at her parents' house felt like a trial. Melissa recalled how her mother Elaine had gently placed her hands on Vanessa's belly, tearfully exclaiming, "Our first grandchild." Even Father Walter had offered an unexpectedly tender smile, a stark contrast to his usual stern demeanor. Bitterly, Melissa wondered if her parents would ever share such delight when it was her turn to be pregnant. Brian sat beside her during dinner that night, but his restlessness was palpable. He kept checking his smartphone and excusing himself repeatedly. "It's work," he explained, yet Melissa couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at her. Later, upon returning home, she logged into their joint bank account online. The balance had fallen further. His business expenses had grown alarmingly frequent and substantial, and his late returns, accompanied by flimsy excuses of client dinners or critical meetings, multiplied. Closing the online session, she stared out at the nocturnal cityscape, her mind buzzing with questions. Why was Brian so unsettled? Why were her parents celebrating Vanessa's pregnancy with such zeal? And why, the harder she tried, did happiness seem more elusive? In the middle of the night, her phone rang again. "Melissa, Vanessa's in labor and has been admitted," came her mother Elaine's excited, joyful voice. It's Chicago Memorial Hospital. We're heading there now. Rubbing her eyes, Melissa glanced at the clock. 2:37 a.m. Brian's pillow is empty. Where is he? She blurted. I'm not sure, her mother replied hesitantly. Probably working late. Can you come in the morning? Morning? Yes, of course, Melissa answered. After hanging up, she rose and moved to the living room. The house was eerily quiet. No messages from Brian, and his coat still hung on its hook. Another work emergency, Melissa muttered as she made tea in the kitchen, recalling how his arrival time had grown increasingly erratic over recent months. Despite her repeated inquiries, Brian's only explanation was that he was preparing for a major contract. At 6 a.m., after a brief nap on the sofa, Melissa awoke to find Brian still absent. Throwing on her jacket, she prepared to leave for the hospital, stifling the anxiety and doubt that tightened in her chest. In the Chicago Memorial Hospital parking lot, a black sedan caught her eye. It was Brian's. He's here, she noted, frowning at the lack of any message from him the previous night. After receiving directions at reception, Melissa made her way to the maternity ward. The pale green walls and antiseptic odor stirred memories of countless visits to the fertility clinic, heightening her apprehension. As she walked along the corridor, checking room numbers, Melissa paused before a corner when she heard a familiar voice, Brian's voice. She has no clue. At least she's a reliable cash cow. The words made her blood run cold. Pressing herself against the wall, she held her breath as another voice cut in. You two ought to be happy together, just a useless failure, came her mother's sharp tone. Her heart pounded. Could she be the target of their scorn? Thank you. I'll ensure our happiness. Vanessa's triumphant laughter echoed, deepening Melissa's dread. Was this some cruel prank? Her legs trembled, threatening to give way under the weight of betrayal. Then her mother continued. The baby really resembles Brian. Look at that nose, that chin. There's no mistaking it. Almost immediately, Brian's voice interjected. No DNA test needed. The baby is unquestionably mine. A piercing pain shot through Melissa's chest. Suddenly, every unsettling clue aligned. Brian's late returns, the mysterious bank withdrawals, Vanessa's effortless pregnancy with an undisclosed father, and her parents' uncharacteristic elation. They all converged into one horrifying revelation. The voices in the room continued. Their conspiratorial dialogue. How will you explain this to Melissa? Her mother demanded. She doesn't need to know. Vanessa's tone turned icy. If she ever learns that the funds for her fertility treatments were actually diverted to cover my delivery, she'll lose it. Brian's mocking laughter followed. She's oblivious. I've been siphoning funds bit by bit from our joint account for your delivery expenses. She's so wrapped up in her work that she never notices. But what if she does? Vanessa queried. She won't, her mother asserted firmly. That girl is always more concerned with work. Family always takes a back seat. That's why we've decided to form a true family, Brian, you and the baby. This is our new family. With trembling hands, Melissa retrieved her smartphone and activated the recording app. She needed undeniable evidence. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she recorded every word. In the end, she can't have children, her mother continued. After years of futile fertility treatments, I craved a grandchild to preserve our family name. Brian has excellent genes. A child from you and him is a gift Melissa never could offer. Vanessa added. When I began my relationship with Brian, I never imagined it would come to this, but now I relish what Melissa can't ever have. Brian's voice, cold and detached, confirmed. Success in the fashion world, awards, accolades. It meant nothing compared to the family I desired. A family that Melissa couldn't provide. Melissa's vision blurred as tears streamed silently down her cheeks. Everything she believed about her life crumbled before her eyes. What are you going to name the baby? Her mother asked, her voice quivering. Elaine, Vanessa replied. I'm naming her after you, Mom. Oh, how wonderful! Her mother exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. You are my true daughter, unlike Melissa. You understand the value of family. Silently, Melissa rose. She stopped the recording and slipped her phone into her pocket. Though her legs felt weak, her resolve was steeled. Without uttering another word, she retraced her steps. A swirl of emotions, betrayal, anger, sorrow, and a newfound liberation raced through her mind. The long-buried questions and anxieties had finally found answers. They weren't the ones she had hoped for, but they were the truth. Exiting the hospital, Melissa walked briskly to her car. The early sun peeked through the clouds, bathing her face in warm light. Settling into the driver's seat, she rested her forehead on the steering wheel. No tears came, only the stirring of something new. A resolve for retribution began to take shape. At that moment her phone rang. It was her father, Walter. "Melissa, where are you? We're all waiting. Vanessa had her baby, a girl," his voice declared. "I'm sorry, Dad," Melissa responded evenly. "Something urgent came up at work. I don't think I can make it today." His tone mingled surprise and anger. "Is work really more important than family at a moment like this?" "Yes, Dad," she replied with a faint smile. "Sometimes work outweighs family, especially when family isn't truly family." After hanging up, she started the engine and adjusted the rearview mirror. Her reflection now exuded strength and determination. Back at her apartment, as the Chicago sunset streamed through the windows, Melissa sipped her coffee and reviewed scattered documents on the living room table: bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts from the fertility clinic. These fragments of her life now stood as undeniable proof of a bitter reality. Returning home directly from the hospital, she began methodically gathering important documents from around the house. Acting as if managing a high-stakes fashion project, she told herself, "I need to compile the facts, logic, not emotion." She replayed the recorded conversation and took detailed notes on every critical point. Brian's secret affair with Vanessa, her mother's scheming misuse of their joint funds, and the stark truth that her fertility treatment money had been misappropriated for Vanessa's delivery expenses. Soon her smartphone buzzed with a message from Brian. "Working late, might not be home tonight. Love you." Melissa offered a cold smile in response. After a brief reply, she scrolled through her contacts and paused at the name Laura Carter, a former law school classmate now specializing in family law. "Laura, it's Melissa," she said over the phone. "I need to discuss an urgent matter. Can we meet today?" An hour later, Laura arrived at Melissa's apartment. Listening intently as Melissa laid out the evidence, reviewed the recording, and examined the bank statements, Laura frowned. "This is appalling," she said. "Legally, you're in a strong position. This isn't just about infidelity. There's also the misuse of our joint property, and it might even be considered fraud. What do you want to do? First, secure all the evidence. Then open a separate bank account in your name," Laura advised in a measured tone. "After that, continue your investigation discreetly. We must uncover everything they've hidden from you." Melissa nodded slowly. "How long will this take?" she asked. 1 to 2 months realistically," Laura replied. "Until then, you need to act normally. They must not suspect a thing." A fierce determination lit up in Melissa's eyes. "I can do this. I'll just play the part of the compliant actress." The next morning, Melissa woke at her usual hour. With Brian still absent, she prepared for work and stopped at the bank to open a new account in her name. At the office, she threw herself into her tasks with renewed focus. Colleagues noticed nothing amiss. None could see the blazing anger smoldering inside her. That evening, Brian called. "I'm coming home tonight, we need to talk," he said. Melissa maintained her composure. "Vanessa had her baby? Did you know it's a girl?" she inquired coolly. "Yes, I heard from Dad." "Congratulations," came his reply, punctuated by a long pause. "Are you saying that to me?" he asked. "No, just to my sister." "I have nothing to add," Melissa replied, keeping her meaning ambiguous. "Could you prepare a special dinner tonight, like a celebration?" he requested. "Of course," she answered, forcing a smile. After the call ended, Melissa inhaled deeply. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. That night, she meticulously prepared Brian's favorite dishes, uncorked a bottle of wine, and set the table with lit candles. When he finally returned, she greeted him warmly. "Welcome home," she said, "and congratulations on becoming an uncle." Brian's relief was evident. "Yes, thanks. Vanessa's baby is adorable. Her name is Elaine, just like Mom's." "Isn't that wonderful?" Melissa kept her smile in place. Come, dinner is ready, she urged. Over the meal, she inquired about his work, the lucrative deals he mentioned, and his future plans. Though his answers occasionally betrayed tension, her calm demeanor seemed to reassure him regarding the fertility treatments. Then, unexpectedly, Melissa broached a new subject. Perhaps I should give it another try, she thought. At that moment, Brian's hand paused mid-gesture with his wine glass, his face frozen. Isn't this enough already? More money, he protested. Are you worried about finances? Melissa asked softly. No, it's not the money. I'm just concerned about your health, he replied with a weak excuse. All those injections and hormone therapies, he began. Melissa gently covered his hand with hers. I'm strong, she assured him, though her cool fingertips went unnoticed. The following week, Melissa launched a meticulous investigation. During her lunch breaks at work, she visited the bank to collect statements from the past 3 years. Later at night, she furtively examined Brian's documents and combed through his computer. She searched for concealed assets and tracked every financial transaction among Brian, her mother, and Vanessa. It's far worse than I ever imagined, Melissa confided to Laura one day. For the last 18 months, Brian has been withdrawing thousands from our joint account each month, transferring the funds into another account. Much of that money went to Vanessa's rent, her upscale shopping, and various delivery expenses. I have all the evidence. She produced a file of bank records, photos, and recordings of their conversations. I even discovered that Mom was involved. She was secretly sending money from her own savings to Vanessa and Brian, hiding it from Dad. Well done, Laura remarked, clearly impressed. In my experience, few clients gather evidence this thoroughly. They ruined my life, Melissa answered quietly. I only did what was necessary. Laura rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You're almost ready. All that remains is to secure a new place and move forward with the separation. Melissa nodded. She had already found a new apartment and just needed to sign the lease. Everything was set for her to step into a new chapter of life. That weekend, when Brian was scheduled for a business trip, Melissa sprang into action. She transferred crucial documents, personal belongings, and cherished mementos to her new apartment. She also withdrew her share from the joint account and worked with her lawyer to begin divorce proceedings. Maybe I should at least speak with Dad, she mused. Walter was a strict father, but he was fair and valued honesty. Unsure if he was aware of the betrayal by his wife, Vanessa, and Brian, Melissa called him. Dad, I need to talk. This is personal. Please keep it between us and Mom. What's wrong? His voice held genuine concern. Can we meet at a cafe tomorrow morning while Mom is at church? The next morning, Father Walter waited for Melissa at a downtown cafe. Clutching all her evidence, she calmly yet firmly recounted the truth. Brian's affair with Vanessa, her mother's complicity, and the misdirection of her fertility treatment funds. Walter's face drained of color. His hands trembled and his eyes burned with anger. Unbelievable. Elaine, doing this, you didn't know, he finally managed. Of course not, Melissa replied softly. Walter raised his voice. I thought I was helping Vanessa gain independence with money from my savings. When I asked about the baby's father, all I got was it's complicated. I never imagined Brian. The evidence is right here, Melissa said as she played the recording. After listening, Walter buried his face in his hands. I'm sorry, Melissa. As a father, I should have seen it sooner. It's not your fault. Melissa grasped his hand. They deceived both of us. What will you do now? Walter asked. Everything is ready. I'm filing for divorce and seeking proper compensation. I will legally reclaim what they stole from me, she replied after a moment's pause. Walter nodded. I'm on your side. Just let me know if you need anything. Thank you, Dad. Your support means everything. For now, just act like you know nothing. I need everything set up before they catch on. Walter agreed and they parted ways. Melissa walked toward her new apartment with a lighter step, unaware that the upcoming events would shatter her entire family. Yet deep inside, she felt the stirrings of something long lost returning. Home, Brian's voice echoed as he returned from his 3-day business trip. He dropped his travel bag in the entryway and surveyed the room. On the living room table lay a brown envelope bearing his name in elegant handwriting. Frowning, he picked it up and discovered formal legal documents and a letter from Melissa. What is this? He wondered aloud. Just then, the apartment door opened and Melissa stepped in. Dressed in a sharp suit with her hair neatly styled, she wore a cold expression Brian had never seen before. Was your trip good? Or did you spend time with Vanessa and the baby? She asked quietly. Brian's face paled. What are you saying? He stuttered. Enough with the act, Melissa said, raising her hand to silence him. I know everything about your relationship with Vanessa, Mom's conspiracy, and that my fertility funds were used for Vanessa's delivery expenses. Glancing at the envelope, Brian's complexion shifted further. This must be a misunderstanding, right? Melissa produced her smartphone and played the recording. The hospital conversation rang out with crystal clarity, Brian's voice followed by Elaine's and Vanessa's. Overwhelmed, Brian sank into a chair. Let me explain, he pleaded, but Melissa's calm voice cut him off. How could you deceive me, betray me, misuse my money, have an affair with my own sister, and father a child with her? What explanation do you have? Brian struggled for words. I really did love you at first, but when we couldn't have children you blamed me? Melissa's voice trembled. Infertility was never my choice. You promised in our vows, in sickness and in health. Brian bowed his head. But Vanessa is different from you, Melissa continued coldly. She's the type to sleep with her sister's husband, bear his child, and feel no remorse for ruining her sister's life. Suddenly, Brian began to plead. Let's start over, we can still fix this. It's too late, Melissa declared, showing him the documents in her hand. Divorce proceedings have already begun. Every piece of evidence, improper withdrawals from our joint account, hidden assets, and your infidelity, is here. Brian's face turned pale. Yes, I recorded everything and gathered the evidence, she explained matter-of-factly. While you claimed to be working, I examined bank statements and uncovered your lies, one by one. A visibly shaken Brian asked, but why didn't you just leave quietly? Anger flashed in Melissa's eyes. You all tried to take everything from me. My husband, my family, my future, even my money. Did you think I'd just walk away? Brian was rendered speechless. The trial starts next week, Melissa continued. Dad already knows. He plans to testify as a witness. Walter's voice trembled with fear. He too, Dad was unaware, Melissa said sternly. He is yet another victim deceived by all of you. Then the phone rang. Brian's smartphone displayed Vanessa's name. Melissa offered a cold smile. Why don't you answer it? It must be important. But Brian ignored the call. How can I? He muttered. There's nothing left for you, Melissa said sharply. I've packed your belongings in boxes. Leave today. Where will you go? I don't know, Brian replied. Melissa shrugged. Then why not go to Vanessa's? Aren't you family? A week later, the trial began. Melissa's lawyer, Laura, presented evidence of not only infidelity but also concealed assets and improper withdrawals from the joint account, recording tapes, bank statements, and numerous photographs. The judge frowned at the serious allegations. Further investigation in court revealed that Elaine had colluded with Brian to hide assets. Forced to take the stand, Elaine's face went pale as the judge demanded, "Why did you do this?" Elaine stumbled over her words. Melissa was always focused on work, putting family second. I believe she shouldn't even have children. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Does that justify facilitating an affair between your daughter's husband and your other daughter? The judge demanded sternly. Elaine could offer no answer. Next to her, Vanessa sat holding the baby, terror evident on her face in the courthouse hallway. Walter stood beside Melissa and quietly commended. Well done. It's painful to see the truth emerge, but it's necessary. Thank you, Dad, Melissa replied. Ultimately, the court accepted Melissa's claims and ruled in her favor regarding the division of property. Additional compensation was awarded due to Brian and her mother's conspiracy to hide assets. On the day the verdict was delivered, Melissa left the courthouse with Laura. Though rain fell outside, a strange brightness warmed her heart. It's over, she murmured. No, Laura smiled. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. A year later, Chicago was adorned in splendid autumn hues. From the window of her new boutique office on Maple Street, Melissa watched leaves dancing in the park. A fresh sign reading Melissa Johnson-style consulting now graced the building's entrance. "We've heard back from the new client," her assistant Jessica reported. "They've signed the contract." Melissa smiled. "Thank you." Over the past year, her life had changed dramatically. The divorce victory and the compensation allowed her to launch the consulting firm she had long dreamed of. Her experience in the fashion industry and keen sensibility quickly attracted attention, and her company grew steadily. Then the phone rang. Her father Walter's name appeared on the screen. "Dad, what's up? Is dinner still on for tonight?" His cheerful voice replied, "Of course. My apartment at 7, Melissa answered. After hanging up, she returned to the window and reflected on the events of the past year. Brian and Vanessa's relationship had collapsed sooner than expected. After the trial, Brian was fired from his real estate job and forced into a lower-paying clerical position, his status and reputation in ruins. He couldn't adapt to his new life with Vanessa. Constant arguments, financial struggles, and the stress of raising a baby only made things worse. A few months ago, Melissa spotted Vanessa at a coffee shop, her once confident demeanor replaced by exhaustion as she tried to soothe her baby. Melissa discreetly shifted to another table, feeling not a sense of victory but a strange emptiness. Her relationship with her mother Elaine had not healed. Despite Elaine's repeated attempts at reconciliation, Melissa remained distant. Their parents had lost social credibility, especially Elaine, who lamented being left out of the lavish Christmas dinners Melissa once hosted. They brought it on themselves, Melissa thought. Yet deep down she sometimes felt the loneliness of complete estrangement. Walter, however, had separated from his wife and moved into a modest apartment, and his bond with Melissa had grown stronger. They began dining together once a week. Back at her office, Melissa glanced at a picture frame on her desk showing her smiling with David Clark, her new partner and an investment advisor she met during the divorce proceedings, who also helped launch her company. David understood her past and nurtured their relationship without haste. Recently, Melissa had initiated adoption proceedings, having given up on fertility treatments in favor of a new path, one that David fully supported. Meanwhile, Brian eventually could no longer afford child support and fled out of state, and Vanessa ended up living with her parents along with the baby. Their once affluent lifestyle, however, was gone forever. That evening, as Melissa left her office, the autumn wind gently caressed her cheeks. She drew a deep breath, filling her lungs with fresh air. Although the pain of the past still lingered, it had made her stronger. What she had lost was significant, but what she had gained, confidence, independence, and true self-worth, was even greater. No longer living in someone else's shadow, she shone in her own light. Looking up at the sky, she watched the setting sun break through the clouds, promising a bright new tomorrow. After the trial, a heavy silence lifted from Melissa's world as if a long-forgotten melody began to play again. In the weeks that followed the verdict, the bitter taste of betrayal slowly gave way to the sweet promise of renewal. Though the memories of deception still haunted her, Melissa felt empowered by the knowledge that truth had finally prevailed, and that she had taken control of her future. In the wake of the court's decision, Brian's world unraveled. Facing not only the loss of his high-flying career but also the collapse of his carefully constructed web of lies, he found himself isolated and burdened by regret. Vanessa, too, discovered that her once carefree existence had become a source of endless remorse, as her actions left her abandoned by those who once celebrated her. Their fall from grace served as a stark reminder of the consequences of living without honor. Melissa, on the other hand, embraced her newfound freedom with a quiet determination. With the court ruling in her favor and her lawyer's assurances that justice had been served, she began piecing together the life that she had long dreamed of, a life defined not by the scars of betrayal but by the strength she had forged in adversity. Each morning, as the autumn light filtered softly through her boutique office window on Maple Street, she reflected on the journey that had led her to this point. The documents that once represented heartbreak were now safely stored away as evidence of her past. In their place were new plans and fresh aspirations. Her consulting company, Melissa Johnson-style Consulting, quickly gained traction in the competitive world of fashion and business. The experience, once so painful, had imbued her with an unmatched resolve, and soon, her reputation for impeccable taste and integrity began drawing in high-profile clients. Every contract signed, every new project initiated was a small victory over the darkness that had threatened to engulf her life. And with each success, she rediscovered the parts of herself that had been hidden away: her creativity, her intelligence, and her unwavering determination. At home, Melissa nurtured the healing of old wounds by reconnecting with her father, Walter. Their weekly dinners became a sanctuary of candid conversation and gentle laughter. Walter, having suffered his own share of regret and disappointment, found solace in the opportunity to support his daughter, assuring her that sometimes the harshest lessons lead to the brightest futures. Together, they began rebuilding a relationship founded on mutual respect and understanding. Walter's steady presence became a beacon for Melissa, reminding her that while the past could not be changed, the future was still hers to shape. As the months turned into a year, Melissa's personal life blossomed in unexpected ways. Her relationship with David Clark, the investment advisor who had become her pillar during the divorce, deepened into a partnership built on trust and shared dreams. David's calm pragmatism and gentle humor balanced Melissa's fierce determination, and together they explored a new path, one that led to the start of adoption proceedings. This decision, made after years of painful attempts at fertility treatments, allowed Melissa to envision a family that was chosen rather than imposed by fate. The adoption process, while sometimes fraught with its own challenges, became a symbol of hope and a promise of unconditional love. One brisk winter evening, as Melissa prepared to host a small celebration for her first successful client meeting at her new office, she found herself surrounded by old friends, loyal colleagues, and a few family members who had quietly rallied behind her. The ambience was warm and inviting, with soft music playing in the background and twinkling lights strung around the room. It was a modest gathering, yet each smile and every kind word filled her with a sense of belonging that had once seemed unattainable. During the celebration, as guests mingled and shared stories of resilience and triumph, Melissa took a moment to step outside onto the balcony. The city lights of Chicago twinkled below like a constellation of second chances. In that reflective pause, she realized that her journey, filled with sorrow, betrayal, and bitter lessons, had ultimately led her to rediscover her true self. She no longer defined her worth by the failures and deceit of others, but by her own capacity to rise, to reinvent, and to love herself fiercely. The sound of laughter drifting up from the party, the soft murmur of heartfelt conversations, and the quiet satisfaction in her heart all confirmed that this was not the end but a new beginning. Melissa understood that life's challenges had sculpted her into a woman of remarkable strength and grace. Standing there with the cool night air whispering promises of tomorrow, she felt an overwhelming sense of resolution. She had reclaimed her narrative, transformed her pain into power, and opened the door to a future filled with genuine connections, professional success, and personal fulfillment. In that moment, with the city stretching out before her and the past now a series of lessons rather than chains, Melissa smiled. The journey had been arduous, but it had ultimately led her to a place where she could finally say, with quiet certainty, that she was home.